The great space station floated in the darkness like a metal city. Ships from all over the galaxy came here to meet and talk. Today was different, though. Today the aliens would decide if humans were strong enough to matter. Captain Lisa Morgan walked through the long halls of the station. Her blue uniform was clean and simple compared to the strange clothes the aliens wore. Some had robes that glowed with light. Others wore suits made of living metal that moved like skin. Lisa kept her face calm, but inside she felt the weight of what was about to happen. The meeting room was huge. It could hold thousands of beings from different worlds. Seats were arranged in circles that went up and up like a mountain made of chairs. Each alien species had their own section. The humans had only 5 seats in a small corner. Lisa stepped up to the speaking platform in the center. Above her head floated a clear ball that would translate her words into every language in the galaxy. She looked around at all the different faces watching her. Some had fur, some had scales. Some looked like they were made of crystal or gas. All of them seemed to be waiting for something funny to happen. "I am Captain Lisa Morgan of Earth," she began. Her voice was steady and clear. "I speak for the human race today. We have traveled far to show you what we can do to protect ourselves and our friends." She pressed a button on her small device. Pictures appeared in the air showing human ships. They were simple-looking compared to the wild designs of alien vessels. The human ships were gray and angular with basic weapons and engines that burned. "Chemical fuel. Earth has built 200 ships," Lisa continued. "Each one carries 50 people. Our weapons can destroy asteroids and our shields can stop most attacks. We have colonies on 17 worlds and mining stations on 40 moons." The room was quiet for a moment. Then something that sounded like giggling started from the alien sections. It grew louder and louder until the whole room was filled with the sound of laughter. A tall woman with pointed ears stood up. Her hair was silver like moonlight and her skin was pale as snow. She wore a green robe that seemed to be made of living leaves. This was Zarathiel, the elf ambassador. 200 ships?" she said in a voice like music. "How sweet. The children are playing with toy boats." More laughter came from the elf section. "My people have 10,000 ships. Each one is grown from the heart of a star tree and blessed by magic that your kind could never understand." Another alien stood up. This one looked like a giant lizard walking on 2 legs. Her scales changed color as she moved, shifting from green to gold to red. This was Kixara, one of the reptile lords who ruled many worlds. "Perhaps the humans would be better suited to growing food for us," Kixara said. Her voice was deep and rough like rocks grinding together. "We always need more farm worlds. They seem good at digging in dirt." A being made of what looked like living crystal chimed in. When Nixtha spoke, her voice sounded like bells ringing. "Our studies show that humans have barely learned to leave their home planet. They use explosions to push their ships through space. How primitive." More aliens joined in the mockery. The gas beings said humans were too solid to understand real movement through space. The machine minds said human thinking was too chaotic and emotional. The plant people said humans destroyed everything they touched. Lisa stood still through it all. Her face showed nothing, but her hands were clenched tight at her sides. Behind her, Lieutenant Amy Sullivan whispered translations of the insults that the main translator was too polite to repeat. Commander Katie Brooks took notes on everything, writing down which aliens seemed most hostile and which ones might be reasoned with later. The elf military commander Velandra stood next. She was shorter than Zarathiel, but her green eyes burned, with the fire of someone who had won many battles. "We conquered 3 star systems last month using only 1 fleet," she said. "Our bioships grow stronger with each fight. They heal themselves and learn from their enemies. What can your metal toys do against living warships?" the reptile overlord Kixara hissed with amusement. "I have eaten creatures more dangerous than humans. They are soft and weak and die too easily. Perhaps we should put them in zoos so people can come see what a primitive species looks like." The crystal being Nixtha added her own comment. "From a scientific view, humans are interesting. They show us what intelligent life looks like before it becomes truly civilized. We should study them carefully before they destroy themselves." The leader of the space station called for order. He was an old alien that looked like a walking tree with many arms. The Galactic Council recognizes that Earth is a new member. We will classify human military power as limited and developing. Perhaps in 1,000 years they will be ready for real responsibility. The voting was quick. Every major species agreed that humans were not a threat to anyone. They were too new, too weak, and too stupid to matter in galactic politics. The Council would give them some small trading rights and protection from pirates, but nothing more. As the meeting ended, the aliens began to leave. Many of them were still laughing and making jokes about human ships and human weakness. Some pointed at Lisa and her small team as if they were looking at animals in a cage. Lisa waited until most of the room was empty before she moved. Amy and Katie walked with her toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the huge space. "They think we're nothing," Amy said quietly. "They think we're just children playing with toys." "Good," Lisa replied. Her voice was calm, but there was something cold in it that made both of her officers look at her carefully. "Let them think that. Let them believe we're harmless and stupid and weak." Katie looked confused. "But Captain, they just voted to treat us like we don't matter. They're not going to give us any real power in the Council." Lisa stopped walking and turned to face her officers. In the dim light of the empty meeting room, her smile was sharp as a knife. "Katie, how many ships do we really have?" Katie thought, for a moment. "The real number? About 12,000, with more being built every day? And how many of those ships use the technology we just showed them?" "None, Captain. Those were the old designs from 20 years ago." Lisa nodded. "Amy, how long have we been planning for this day?" "Since we first left Earth, Captain. Since we first learned that the galaxy was full of species that thought they were better than us." "Then you understand," Lisa said. "Today was not about showing them our strength. Today was about showing them exactly what they expected to see. A weak, primitive species that poses no threat to their comfortable little empire." The three humans walked toward their ship in silence. Behind them, the great station continued its slow orbit around the planet below. In a few hours, every major species in the galaxy would know that humanity had been judged harmless and irrelevant. None of them suspected that this was exactly what the humans had been hoping for all along. 3 months passed after the council meeting. In that time, the aliens began to notice things that worried them. Human ships were seen in places they should not be. Human colonies were growing faster than anyone expected. Reports came in that humans were asking too many questions about alien technology and alien worlds. Zarathiel sat in her beautiful garden on the elf home world. The trees around her were so tall they touched the clouds. Their trunks were wide enough to hold entire cities inside them. Flowers glowed with soft light and the air smelled like spring rain. But the elf ambassador was not enjoying the peaceful setting. She was reading reports that made her angry and afraid. "They are spreading too fast," she said to Vel-Andra, who stood nearby wearing her battle armor. "In just 3 months, humans have built new colonies on 12 more worlds. They are mining asteroids in systems we thought were empty. Their trade ships are everywhere." Vel-Andra nodded grimly. Her green eyes scanned the reports floating in the air between them. "My scouts report something else. Human ships disappear from our sensors sometimes. One moment they are there, the next moment they are gone. Our best tracking technology cannot follow them." "Impossible," Zarathiel said. "We saw their ships at the council meeting. They use chemical rockets and basic shields. How can such primitive technology hide from our scanners?" "I do not know," Vel-Andra replied. "But I know what I see. Humans are not behaving like a weak species should behave. They act like they have secrets." Far away on a world of red stone and burning sand, Kixara was having similar thoughts. The reptile overlord stood in her palace made of black glass. Her scales shifted from angry red to worried purple as she listened to her spies. "The humans have approached 17 different species about trade deals," one spy reported. "They offer raw materials and food in exchange for information about our technology. They ask very specific questions about our weapons and our ships." Another spy added, "They have also been asking about our history. They want to know how we conquered other species. They want to know our battle tactics and our weaknesses." Kixara's tail lashed back and forth. "This sounds like intelligence gathering. The humans are studying us like we are their enemies." "But Why would such a weak species dare to spy on their betters? On the crystal world where Nixtha lived, the situation was even more confusing. The crystal being floated in a chamber filled with pure light, processing data from across the galaxy. Her faceted body split the light into rainbow patterns as she tried to understand what the humans were really doing. "The mathematical models do not make sense," she said to her fellow crystal beings. "Human population growth is too fast. Their industrial capacity is expanding too quickly. Their resource consumption suggests they are building far more than they should be able to build." "Perhaps they are simply inefficient," another crystal being suggested. "Primitive species often waste resources." "No," Nixtha replied. "The waste patterns are wrong. If they were inefficient, we would see different signs. This looks like they are building things we cannot detect, things they are hiding from us." As weeks passed, more alien species began to share their concerns. The gas beings reported that human ships had been seen near their breeding clouds, taking measurements and samples. The machine minds found human data probes trying to access their networks. The plant people discovered human scientists studying their biotechnology in ways that seemed too advanced for such a primitive species. Finally, Zarathiel decided that something had to be done. She sent secret messages to the other major powers, calling for a meeting on neutral ground. The location she chose was a dead world at the edge of known space, where no one could spy on their conversation. The meeting took place in a temporary dome built on the planet's surface. Representatives from 12 different species gathered in the artificial atmosphere. The dome was small and cramped compared to the Grand Council chamber, but it was private and secure. "Fellow leaders," Zarathiel began, "we face a problem that threatens the stability of our galaxy. The human species is not what it appears to be." She activated a holographic display showing the rapid expansion of human colonies. Red dots spread across the star map like a disease, covering systems that had been empty just months before. "They are expanding too fast," Velandra added. "No species develops this quickly without help or without technology we do not understand." Kixara's scales flashed angry red. "My spies report that humans have been asking questions about our military capabilities. They want to know how we fight, how we conquer, how we control other species. These are not the questions of a peaceful trading partner." The crystal being Nixtha projected her analysis into the center of the dome. "I have calculated the probability that human expansion is natural. The chance is less than 3%. They must have capabilities they are hiding from us." Other species shared their own concerns. The Nebula Collective reported human mining operations near their sacred breeding grounds. The synthesis machine minds detected unauthorized attempts to access their databases. The Hegemony's trade monitors found human cargo ships carrying materials that did not match their declared manifests. "The evidence is clear," Zarathiel concluded. "Humans are conducting military intelligence operations against us. They are building hidden facilities and ships we cannot detect. They are expanding into territory they have no right to claim. And they are doing all of this while pretending to be a weak and harmless species." Velandra stood up, her battle armor gleaming in the dome's artificial light. "In my experience, there is only one reason why a species would hide its true strength. They are preparing for war." The silence that followed was heavy with fear and anger. Every species in the dome had spent centuries or millennia believing they were the dominant powers in the galaxy. The idea that a newcomer species might challenge their authority was unthinkable. Kixara broke the silence. "What do you propose we do about this threat?" "We form an alliance," Zarathiel replied. "A temporary partnership between our species to deal with the human problem. We show them that they cannot deceive us or threaten us. We demonstrate our combined strength and force them to accept their proper place in the galactic order." Negotiation took 3 days. Each species wanted to make sure they would benefit from the alliance. The elves demanded leadership of the military operations. The reptiles wanted first rights to any human territory that was conquered. The crystal beings insisted on studying any captured human technology. But in the end, they all agreed. The Galactic Stability Alliance was born from their shared fear of human deception and human expansion. 12 major species pledged their fleets to a simple mission: contain humanity before they became a real threat. "We are not monsters," Zarathiel said, as they signed the agreement. We do not wish to destroy the human species. We simply want to teach them their place in the galaxy. They need to understand that there are consequences for lying to their betters. Velandra added, "A show of overwhelming force should be enough. Once they see our combined fleets, they will surrender quickly. Humans are weak and emotional. They will not fight a battle they cannot win." The Alliance members began to move their fleets into position immediately. 50,000 ships from 12 species converged on the edge of human space. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. On Earth, human intelligence officers watched the alien fleet movements with interest. Captain Lisa Morgan received the reports in her office, deep beneath the surface of the planet. The room was plain and functional, with screens showing data from across the galaxy. "They are doing exactly what we expected," Commander Katie Brooks reported. 12 species, 50,000 ships, all moving to intimidate us into submission. Lieutenant, Amy Sullivan looked up from her communications console. "Captain, we have been monitoring their private communications. They believe we have been spying on them and building secret weapons. They think we are preparing for war." Lisa smiled coldly. "They are not wrong about that. We have been preparing for war, just not the kind of war they expect." She turned to look at a large screen showing the positions of the alien fleets. Red symbols marked enemy ships, while blue symbols showed human positions. To any outside observer, it would look hopeless. The humans were outnumbered 50-1. "Katie, what is the status of our real fleet?" Lisa asked. 12,000 ships. Ready for combat, Captain. Another 8,000 in reserve. All equipped with the new technology that the aliens have never seen. And our dimensional shipyards? Operating at full capacity. We can build 40 new ships every week. Lisa nodded, with satisfaction. "Then it is time to show the galaxy what humans really look like when we stop pretending to be harmless." The Emergency Council meeting was called 6 weeks after the Alien Alliance formed. This time, the great space station orbited a different world, one closer to the center of the galaxy, where all the major powers could bring their largest ships. The council chamber had been expanded to hold representatives from all 12 Alliance species, creating a vast amphitheater of alien faces, all focused on one goal. Captain Lisa Morgan entered the chamber with only 4 other humans. Compared to the massive delegations that other species brought, the human group looked tiny and insignificant. The elves alone had brought 40 representatives, each one dressed in robes that seemed to be made of living starlight. The reptile delegation filled an entire section with their black and gold armor. The crystal beings created a rainbow of light wherever they moved. The chamber fell silent as Lisa walked to the central platform. Every alien eye was focused on her simple blue uniform and her calm expression. Many of them expected to see fear or desperation on the human face. Instead, they saw only quiet confidence. Zarathiel called the meeting to order. Her silver hair was arranged in complex braids that showed her high rank among the elves. "We are gathered here to address the military expansion of the human species. Captain Morgan, you requested this emergency session. The Council recognizes Earth's delegation." Lisa stepped up to the speaking platform. The translation device above her head hummed softly as it prepared to carry her words to every species in the chamber. "Honored representatives," she began, "Earth acknowledges your concerns about our recent expansion. We understand that our growth has caused worry among the established galactic powers." Velandra leaned forward in her seat. The elf military commander wore her battle armor even to diplomatic meetings, and her green eyes were sharp with suspicion. "Do you also acknowledge that your species has violated the territorial agreements made at the last council session?" "We do," Lisa replied without hesitation. "Human colonies have been established in systems that were previously unclaimed. Our mining operations have expanded beyond the limits suggested for new species. Our trade ships have traveled to worlds where we were not specifically invited." Kixara's scales shifted to a satisfied gold color. The reptile overlord had expected the humans to make excuses or try to lie their way out of trouble. This honest admission was exactly what she wanted to hear. "Very refreshing," she said in her deep, rough voice. "At least you admit your violations. Now, what do you intend to do about them?" Lisa looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from every major species. In the spirit of galactic cooperation and peace, Earth is prepared to demonstrate our full military capability for Council evaluation. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. This was not what anyone had expected. Most alien species thought the humans would beg for mercy or try to negotiate some kind of deal. The idea that they wanted to show off their military strength seemed almost comical. Nixtha's crystal body flickered with rapid color changes as she processed this unexpected development. You wish to demonstrate your military capability? The same capability we evaluated at the previous council session? Not exactly, Lisa said. She touched a small device on her wrist. The ships you saw before were our diplomatic and exploration vessels. Today you will see our actual defense fleet. How amusing, Zarathiel said with a musical laugh. Very, well, human. Show us this defense fleet you speak of. We are curious to see what you have been hiding. Lisa raised her communicator to her lips. Admiral Harris, you are authorized to begin Operation Daybreak. The main display screen activated, showing the space around the council station. At first, nothing seemed to change. The alien fleet was visible in the distance, 50,000. Ships arranged in perfect battle formations. Their weapons were powered down but ready, their shields glowing softly in the starlight. Then space itself seemed to tear open. It started as small rifts in reality, like cracks in a black mirror. The cracks grew larger and wider until they became doorways that led to somewhere else entirely. Through these impossible openings came ships unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. The human vessels were massive, larger than any ship in the alien fleets. Their hulls were dark as space itself, covered in patterns that seemed to shift and move when you looked at them directly. Strange lights pulsed along their surfaces in colors that had no names. Energy flowed around them like living things, but it was not just the ships themselves that shocked the aliens. It was how many there were. Hundreds became thousands. Thousands became tens of thousands. The human fleet kept coming through the dimensional rifts until the space around the station was filled with their dark shapes. Commander Katie Brooks spoke into the stunned silence. Current fleet strength, 12,400 active vessels. An additional 8,000 ships remain in reserve status. All ships are equipped with reality drive engines, quantum cascade weapons, and adaptive defense systems. Lieutenant Amy Sullivan added in a calm, professional voice. Earth's industrial capacity currently produces 43 new vessels per week across 17 shipyards in 8 different star systems. The chamber was filled with the sound of aliens trying to speak and failing to find words. Kixara's scales cycled rapidly through every color in her species' emotional range. Nixtha's crystal form flickered so fast it looked like she might shatter. Even Zarathiel, with all her diplomatic training, could only stare at the display in shock. This is impossible, Velandra finally managed to say. Our intelligence clearly showed that humans had only 200 ships. We monitored your shipyards. We tracked your resource usage. We knew exactly what you were building. Lisa's smile was cold and sharp. Your intelligence saw exactly what we wanted you to see. 200 ships conducting training exercises and diplomatic missions. Did you really think humanity would reveal its true military strength to a council that had already demonstrated its hostility toward us? Zarathiel stood up slowly, her usual grace replaced by something that looked almost like panic. Impossible. We have the best surveillance technology in the galaxy. We monitored every human world, every human facility, every human... You monitored our public facilities, Katie interrupted. The ones we built specifically for your surveillance networks. Our actual production centers operate in folded space that your sensors cannot detect. The crystal being Nixtha finally managed to speak, though her voice was distorted by rapid fluctuations. How long have you been deceiving the Council? How long have you been building this fleet in secret? Humanity has been preparing for this moment since our first day on the Galactic Council, Lisa replied. When you laughed at our primitive technology and treated us like children, we decided to show you what human determination looks like when it is properly motivated. The reality of the situation began to sink in. The Galactic Stability Alliance had been formed to contain a species they thought was weak and primitive. Instead, they found themselves facing a force that outnumbered their combined fleets and possessed technology that seemed to operate by completely different rules. What do you want? Kixara asked. Her scales had settled into a pattern of black and white stripes that indicated extreme stress. Recognition, Lisa answered simply. not as a developing species to be managed and controlled, but as an equal partner in galactic civilization. The age of your comfortable dominance is over. The display showed human ships maintaining perfect formation around the alien fleet. Their weapons were powered but not targeted at anyone. Their shields were active, but not aggressive. It was clearly a demonstration of strength rather than a threat of immediate violence, but the message was unmistakable. Humanity was no longer asking for a seat at the table. They had built their own table, and everyone else was invited to join, them under the new rules. Velandra looked at the tactical displays showing the impossible human fleet. This changes everything. The balance of power in the galaxy has shifted completely. The balance of power was always an illusion, Lisa replied. You believed you were strong because you had never faced a real challenge. You believed you were wise because you had never met anyone who could think differently than you do. Today, you learned that the galaxy is much larger and much more dangerous than you ever imagined. Zarathiel sat down heavily in her bio-grown chair. Her silver hair fell across her face as she tried to process what had just happened. What are your terms, Captain Morgan? What do you demand from us? Lisa looked around the chamber one more time. Every alien representative was waiting for her answer, expecting her to make the same demands that any conquering species would make. Territory, tribute, submission. Instead, she surprised them again. I demand nothing, she said. But I offer you a choice. You can continue to think of this galaxy as your private kingdom, where the strong rule over the weak and new species are kept in their place, or you can help us build something better. The alien response came faster than anyone expected. Within 6 hours of the council meeting, messages flooded the communication networks from every alliance member. The tone was the same across all species. Humanity would submit to galactic authority or face the consequences of their defiance. Zarathiel sent the official ultimatum from her flagship. The massive bioship looked like a living tree growing in space, its wooden hull covered in glowing flowers that pulsed with magical energy. Captain Morgan, her voice carried across the void with musical authority, you have 72 hours to withdraw your fleet and accept Alliance oversight of all human military operations. If you refuse, we will be forced to restore galactic order by any means necessary. Captain Lisa Morgan received the message aboard her flagship while sitting in the command center of the largest human vessel ever built. The ship was called UES Defiance, and it was more like a flying city than a traditional warship. Its dark hull stretched for miles in every direction, covered in weapon systems that no alien had ever seen before. They are calling our bluff, Commander Katie Brooks said as she reviewed the intelligence reports streaming in from human scout ships positioned throughout the galaxy. 12 Alliance fleets are moving into attack positions. Combined strength shows 48,000 ships now, with more arriving every hour. Lieutenant Amy Sullivan looked up from her communications station, where dozens of screens showed incoming messages from alien governments. Captain, we are receiving surrender demands from the Machine Collective, territorial ultimatums from the gas beings, and threat assessments from the Crystal Hierarchy. None of them sound friendly. Lisa studied the tactical displays with the same calm focus that had made her famous among human military officers. The screens showed red symbols representing enemy fleets and blue symbols showing human positions. To most people, the numbers would look hopeless. The aliens had more ships, more experience, and had been fighting wars across the galaxy for thousands of years. They are thinking like they always have, Lisa said quietly. Overwhelming force, applied to a weaker opponent until that opponent surrenders. They do not understand that humans think differently about warfare. What are your orders, Captain? Katie asked. Signal all fleet commanders. Operation Deep Strike is now active. Lisa turned to her communications officer. Amy, open a channel to all Alliance vessels. Let them hear what humans sound like when we stop being polite. The main screen activated, showing Lisa sitting in her command chair with the vast human fleet visible through the transparent walls behind her. Her voice was calm, but carried a weight that made every alien who heard it feel suddenly cold. Alliance. Forces. This is Captain Lisa Morgan of the Terran Defense Fleet. You have positioned your ships in aggressive formations within human-claimed territory. You have issued ultimatums to a sovereign species. You have threatened military action against Earth colonies. These acts constitute declarations of war under both human and galactic law. Zarathiel's response came immediately, her musical voice now sharp with anger. You dare threaten civilizations that ruled the galaxy before your species learned to use tools? You are outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting enemies with thousands of years of combat experience. We offer you one final chance to... Her transmission cut off abruptly as every human ship on her sensors simply vanished. Not destroyed, not retreating, just gone as if they had never existed at all. Velandra's voice crackled across the communication channels from her command ship. Impossible! They were right there. How did 12,000 ships just disappear from our sensors? The answer came in a way that no alien military doctrine had ever prepared for. Human ships began materializing inside alliance formations, appearing at distances so close that collision seemed inevitable. But instead of crashing into alien vessels, the human ships simply passed through them as if the laws of physics had temporarily stopped working. Dimensional warfare, Katie Brooks announced calmly over the open communication channels, as alliance forces scrambled to respond to enemies that seemed to exist in multiple realities at once. You cannot fight what you cannot predict, and you cannot predict an enemy that does not follow your rules of movement. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Human ships phased in and out of normal space, striking from impossible angles before vanishing again. Alliance forces found themselves firing at empty space, while human weapons tore through their formations from directions that should not have existed. Kixara's massive dreadnought tried to rally the reptile fleet by forming a defensive sphere. But human ships appeared inside the formation, having somehow bypassed every layer of shields and armor. Her scales flashed white with terror as she watched her most powerful warships being destroyed by weapons that seemed to rewrite the basic laws of reality. They are not just more advanced than us, she transmitted to the other Alliance commanders. They are fighting with technology that operates on completely different scientific principles. How did our intelligence miss this level of development? The Elven bioships, designed to grow stronger and adapt during combat, found themselves helpless against weapons that attacked at the quantum level. Velandra watched in horror as her flagship began to dissolve at the molecular level, its living systems unable to maintain coherence under sustained reality bombardment. "This is not warfare," she screamed into her communicator as her ship died. Around her. "This is something beyond warfare. They are fighting us with weapons that should not be possible." The crystal beings tried to use their superior computational abilities to predict human movement patterns. But Nixtha discovered that human ships were not just moving through normal space. They were moving through dimensions that her people had not even known existed. "Retreat," she signaled to her fleet. "Immediate retreat to minimum safe distance. We cannot fight enemies who exist in more dimensions than we can perceive." Within 6 hours of the battle beginning, the Alliance had lost over 15,000 ships. Human casualties were exactly 0, not because the aliens had failed to target them, but because human ships simply had not been present in normal space when the alien weapons fired. Lisa's voice carried across the battlefield as the shattered remains of Alliance fleets pulled back in disorder. "This concludes our demonstration of human defensive capabilities. Alliance forces, you have 6 hours to withdraw from human territory and cease all hostile actions. This is our final offer." Zara Thiel, broadcasting from an escape pod after her flagship had been completely dissolved, made one desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "You cannot sustain this level of technology indefinitely. Your weapons may be advanced, but you lack our numbers, our industrial base, our patience," Lisa interrupted. "You are correct about that. We are done being patient with species that mistake kindness for weakness." The tactical display showed new contacts appearing throughout human space, not warships this time, but massive industrial vessels that emerged from dimensional folds near strategic locations. Construction ships, the size of small moons, began assembling structures that dwarfed anything the aliens had ever built. "You wanted to see human military capability," Commander Katie announced to the surviving Alliance ships. "What you have seen so far was our expeditionary force. Would you like to meet our home defense fleet?" The space around Earth began to fill, with ships that made the expeditionary force look small. Weapons platforms the size of asteroids materialized in perfect defensive formations. Reality anchors locked the entire solar system into normal space, preventing any other species from using dimensional travel within human territory. Defensive fleet status: 40,000 active vessels with full reality manipulation capability, Amy Sullivan reported. Industrial capacity, 200 new ships per week and increasing. Estimated time to galactic fleet parity at current production rates, 18 months. The surviving Alliance commanders stared at their tactical displays, in stunned silence. They had thought they were fighting a war against an upstart species with delusions of grandeur. Instead, they had discovered that they were fighting a war against a civilization that had been preparing for this exact conflict since the day they first left their home planet. Kixara, her flagship crippled and her fleet scattered, transmitted a message that reached every Alliance commander simultaneously. We have made a terrible mistake. We thought we were the apex predators in this galaxy. We were wrong. The war was over almost before it had begun. Not because one side had been completely destroyed, but because the aliens had finally understood the true scope of what they were facing. Humanity had not been hiding their weakness. They had been hiding their overwhelming strength. 2 weeks after the devastating Alliance defeat, the galaxy looked completely different than it had before. The emergency council session was not held on the neutral space station this time. Instead, it took place aboard the human flagship orbiting Earth itself, a symbolic demonstration that the balance of power had shifted permanently. The once proud Alliance representatives sat in chairs provided by their former enemies, their delegations much smaller than they had been before the war. Many species that had joined the Alliance for protection had already switched sides, sending desperate messages to Earth requesting separate peace negotiations. Captain Lisa Morgan stood before the assembled aliens, but her role had changed from military commander to something much more complex. Behind her, Earth gleamed blue and green through the massive transparent walls of the conference room, while human ships moved in protective formations that somehow managed to look both welcoming and absolutely deadly. "The war is over," Lisa began, her voice carrying none of the anger or triumph that the aliens had expected to hear. "Not because we destroyed your fleets, though we could have, but because the galaxy has learned something important about what happens when you underestimate human determination." Zarathiel sat stiffly in her bio-grown chair, her silver hair no longer arranged in the complex patterns that showed high rank among her people. Her elegant robes were stained and torn from her escape pod experience, and her usually perfect composure was completely gone. "What are your terms, human? What tribute do you demand from the defeated?" Tribute. Lisa looked genuinely surprised by the question. "Ambassador Zarathiel, we are not conquerors looking to build an empire. We are diplomats who happen to be very effective at warfare when the situation requires it." Commander Katie Brooks activated a holographic display that showed the new treaty proposal floating in the air above the conference table. Earth's terms are actually quite simple. We want formal recognition of human territorial sovereignty, dissolution of the Galactic Stability Alliance, and establishment of a new council structure based on actual equality rather than who has been around the longest, Lieutenant Amy Sullivan added with a slight smile that confused many of the alien representatives. "We are also proposing mutual non-aggression pacts with all current Alliance members, plus technology-sharing agreements that will benefit every species involved." Velandra leaned forward in her chair, her battle armor now bearing the scars of her recent defeat. "You are offering to share your technology, after proving that you could destroy us completely whenever you choose to do so?" "Of course we are," Lisa replied as if the question itself was strange. "Why would we not share our advances with our neighbors? The galaxy is large enough for all of us to prosper together." Nixtha's crystal form flickered rapidly as she tried to process this unexpected development. "Your quantum manipulation technology alone could revolutionize our understanding of physical reality. Your dimensional warfare capabilities could make traditional military thinking completely obsolete. Why would you give away such advantages?" Lisa's expression became warmer and more genuine. "Because strong neighbors make good neighbors. We would much rather have allies than subjects to control." Kixara's scales shifted through colors that human translators had never seen before, patterns that indicated deep confusion mixed with something that might have been respect. "In our culture, the strong dominate the weak because that is the natural order. Your behavior makes no sense to us." "Maybe that is why you lost," Commander Katie observed in a mild tone that somehow made her words even more cutting. "You spent So much time and energy keeping other species down that you forgot to keep growing and improving yourselves. The negotiations continued for 3 days, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The old system of galactic civilization, based on ancient hierarchies and established power structures, gave way to something that had never existed before, a true confederation of equals where advancement and cooperation replaced military domination. The treaty signing took place in the same conference room where the negotiations had occurred. Representatives from over 30 species put their marks on the agreement that would reshape how the galaxy governed itself. The document established principles that seemed revolutionary. No species would be considered superior to any other. Territorial expansion would be based on cooperation rather than conquest, and technology sharing would be encouraged rather than restricted. 6 months later, the first joint human-elf research station opened in orbit around a star that had previously been on the border between their territories. The station was a marvel of combined engineering. Elven biotechnology enhanced by human dimensional manipulation, creating living spaces that existed in multiple realities simultaneously. Zarathiel found herself working alongside the same humans she had once dismissed as primitive children. The irony was not lost on her as she stood in the station's central garden, watching human and alien children play together among flowers that bloomed in colors that existed only in folded space. "I must ask you something," she said to Lisa during a diplomatic reception celebrating the station's opening. "When did you know? When did humanity decide that we were your enemies?" Lisa considered the question while watching the children play. Some were human, some were elf, some were from species that had never interacted peacefully before the war. "We never considered you our enemies, Zarathiel. We considered you our teachers." "Teachers?" The elf ambassador looked confused. "You taught us everything we needed to know about galactic civilization," Lisa explained. "That strength is respected, while weakness is exploited. That the only way to ensure our species' survival was to become too powerful for anyone to threaten safely. That the galaxy needed someone strong enough to protect the weak and wise enough to choose cooperation over conquest." Zarathiel's laugh contained no humor, only a bitter understanding of how completely her people had misjudged the situation. "So our mockery and contempt created the very force we sought to prevent." "Your behavior motivated us," Lisa corrected gently. "But our response was always our choice to make. We could have become the same kind of conquerors that you were, taking what we wanted and forcing others to submit. Instead, we chose to become what the galaxy actually needed." The reception continued around them, with representatives from dozens of species working together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. Human dimensional technology combined with elven bioengineering created living ships that could exist in multiple realities. Crystal computational power enhanced by reptilian durability produced analysis systems of incredible sophistication. Gas being environmental control merged with machine precision resulted in habitats that could support any form of life. "Perhaps," Zarathiel said thoughtfully, "being laughed at was the best thing that ever happened to humanity." Lisa's smile was enigmatic as she watched a group of scientists from 5 different species collaborating on a project that none of them could have completed alone. Maybe it was the best thing that ever happened to all of us. Outside the station's viewing ports, the combined fleet of the new Galactic Confederation patrolled the borders of known space. Human ships worked alongside vessels from every member species, no longer hiding their strength, but no longer needing to prove it either. They had become guardians of a galactic civilization that had finally learned the difference between ruling through fear and leading through respect. The galaxy had laughed at humanity once, dismissing them as weak and primitive and irrelevant. Now every species in known space followed human leadership toward a future that none of them could have built alone. The age of dominance and submission was over, replaced by an age of cooperation and mutual growth. In the end, the aliens had been right about one thing. Humanity had changed the galaxy forever. They had just been completely wrong about how.